Last week, the Bolivian city of Cochabamba and the country's president, Evo Morales, played host to the World People's Conference on Climate Change and the Rights of Mother Earth. The conference sought to distinguish itself from United Nations conferences for giving a greater voice to civil society and expanding the conversation beyond just greenhouse gas reduction. The Real News spoke to Friedman-rudovsky, a Bolivia-based freelance journalist who recently returned from the conference.
The official count was that there were 35,000 participants, 142 countries represented, and 47 of those countries sent official delegations.
Estamos aquí reunidos porque los países llamados desarrollados no cumplieron con su obligación de establecer compromisos sustanciales de reducción de gases de efecto invernadero en Copenhague. Que estos países hubieran respetado el protocolo de Kioto y se hubieran acordado reducir sustancialmente sus emisiones dentro de sus fronteras, esta conferencia no hubiera sido necesaria.
There were so many proposals and ideas that were sort of popping up all over the place. I mean, everything from, an international criminal court on climate change to a global referendum, to pushing this idea of climate reparations or climate debt. I think the message that this summit sent was, if you guys aren't going to be able to do this, then we need to take matters into our own hands. That, people from all over the global south are going to get together and talk about their experiences, talk about solutions, and try to push that message to be incorporated into the next summit of world leaders.
O finalmente, si no nos escuchan, cómo organizarnos, potenciarnos socialmente, sindicalmente, en todo el mundo, para obligar a que los países desarrollados respeten las conclusiones de los movimientos sociales del mundo.
As the summit wrapped up in Cochabamba, Bolivia's finance minister, Luis Arce, was in Washington, D.C. giving a presentation on Bolivia's economic alternative to neoliberalism and its results in the 4 years since Morales took power.
GDP per capita, it means when we received the government in 2005, we received it with $1,010 per Boliviano. And now we have $1,683, a growth rate of more than 60% in 4 years. We have now the highest growth rate in the region, and when I'm talking the region, it means from Alaska to Argentina.
Over the past year and a half, you have global economic recession, and the fact is, in Bolivia, things have not gotten worse over the past few years, which is really saying something. I mean, it's South America's poorest nation, but as you note, the economy is growing.
As for how such success was arrived at, Arce primarily credited the nationalization of the oil and gas industry for increasing government revenues which were then directed towards infrastructure, key industries, and social programs.
We have resources, we have hydrocarbons, mining, electricity, and environmental resources that we can use to generate the new Bolivia. The new Bolivia who will invest in industry, manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, and so on. So who can do this job for us? Of course, the private sector cannot do that because the private sector is seeking another things as profits and so on. The only actor that could do it is, of course, the state.
Some are suggesting that Bolivia's extraction economy is creating a contradiction.
Evo Morales, who's really leading this world movement to protect the rights of Mother Earth, yet in his own country, there is still, this extractive industry is the base. The problem is they can't just cut off all extractive industries right now. The economy would crash, people would starve, people would die.
The Real News asked the minister about this apparent contradiction.
The current law, has parameters for the mining and hydrocarbon exploitation, so we don't have problems with that. We have already taken care of the natural resources and the environment, so no problem at all. There's no contradiction at all.
But even during the conference in Cochabamba, a series of direct actions were taken by community groups around the San Cristobal silver and zinc mine in the neighboring department of Potosí. They claim that their water supply is being depleted by the mine, which is run by the Japan-based Sumitomo Corporation.
Exigimos a la minera San Cristóbal, preserve el medio ambiente y no lo contamine.
They want the company to pay for the 600 liters of water per second that it uses, which it currently gets for free under an agreement with the government that preceded Morales. Actions taken by protesters included blocking all railroad and road shipments for almost 2 weeks and burning down a company office building. The protesters want their water resources replenished, as well as funding for electrical infrastructure projects. The blockade has since been lifted, but the group pledged to take action again if they see no progress in the next month. At the UN Climate Summit in Copenhagen in December, Danish authorities chose to repress street protests, where almost 1,000 people were arrested, most of which after being pinned in for hours by police. In contrast, the Morales government did not attack or arrest the protesters in Potosí. Nonetheless, the actions did bring Bolivia's resource dilemma to the forefront. In an interview with Democracy Now!, President Morales acknowledged it as a challenge.
Ahí necesitamos estudios profundos.
We need in-depth studies on this.
Si queremos defender la madre tierra,
if we want to defend Mother Earth and the rights of Mother Earth, any project for industrializing natural resources to respect the regeneration of biocapabilities.
But he had harsh words for the organizations who chastise his government for supporting extraction and infrastructure projects.
Those foundations, NGOs said Amazon, no oil. So they're telling me that I should shut down oil wells and gas wells. So what is Bolivia going to live off of? So let's be realistic. And they tell me don't build roads. And another one says don't build dams.
Anteayer, cuando estaba aquí atrás, en Colombia,
when I was just back here,
yo anuncié que vamos a construir camino doble vía de Oruro hasta Colombia.
We're going to build a road from Oruro to a place near here. That is the most widely applauded project by the grassroots people, because people who need to be able to have access. If we look just out here, Alto, every day they're asking for small-scale dams.
ONGs,
so NGOs
y dirigentes,
and some leaders
dicen no
say
cuando ellos no interpretan las necesidades
no
de sus bases.
When they're not interpreting the needs of their grassroots. That is the truth.
Bolivia's central proposal for overcoming the reliance on extraction is the idea of climate debt. At the Copenhagen summit in December, Bolivian climate negotiator and ambassador to Switzerland, Angelica Navarro, explained the concept of climate debt.
Bolivia considers that it's developed countries that owe climate debt to developing countries. This debt has to be paid to us. And we are mentioning that this debt has to be twofold. The first one is that they have to repay regarding their own emissions. They have to free space for developing countries to carry on a sustainable development, because we don't want to develop in the irresponsible way they have done.
Making, the industrialized world responsible for helping or aiding countries in the developed world to not just continue resource extraction, but to really jump to clean energy. And so I think they're really trying to push that idea, trying to get financial or technical resources to be able to move on a cleaner path themselves.
This tension that comes with extraction-based development isn't exclusive to Bolivia. Ecuador recently became the only country in the world to include the rights of nature in its constitution. But, like Bolivia, the Ecuadorian government also funds its social programs with extraction revenue. President Rafael Correa has suggested another way that developing countries with resources could overcome this problem.
Tal vez la audiencia, el público no conoce lo que es la iniciativa Yasuní-TT. Son las mayores reservas, más de 900 millones de barriles de petróleo, pero que está en una zona muy sensible ecológicamente, que es el Parque Nacional Yasuní. Nosotros hemos propuesto al mundo, dejamos ese petróleo bajo tierra. Con ello, evitamos enviar a la atmósfera más de 400 millones de toneladas de CO2, cuyo valor de mercado, los bonos de carbono, etcétera, será alrededor de $5.000 millones. Estamos pidiendo unos 3.500 millones de dólares, la mitad del valor presente neto de esas reservas. El mayor contribuyente, el que mayor sacrificio hace es el Ecuador. Financieramente lo que más nos conviene es explotar ese petróleo. Queremos colaborar para evitar el aceleramiento, al menos, del cambio climático. Cambio climático que no son los países pobres los que lo han causado, sino los países ricos. Pero exigimos corresponsabilidad al resto del mundo. Si no hay esa corresponsabilidad, tendremos que extraer ese petróleo.
Industrialized governments have yet to show consideration to these kinds of ideas. In fact, the Obama administration actually cut some aid to Bolivia and Ecuador following their rejection of the Copenhagen Accord. U.S. climate negotiator Todd Stern told the Washington Post that, quote, "The U.S. is going to use its funds to go to countries that have indicated an interest to be part of the accord." In the meantime, Minister Arce confirmed that Bolivia has plans to expand its extractive industries in order to finance its many goals, such as food self-sufficiency and extreme poverty eradication.